Welcome to another Joseph Morris live stream. If you're new here, hello, how are you? I am Joseph Morris. I'm going to be a Prince Andrew trial case discussion channel. So if that's for you, please make sure you hit subscribe, ring the bell so you never miss a live, and don't forget to like my video. It really helps out my channel. So as we all know, Ghislaine Maxwell last week was convicted of some terrible crimes, and she's now facing 65 years in prison because she's been convicted through testimonies of 4 separate women, including Miss Farmer and 3 other pseudonyms, including Jane and Caroline. So these women all stood together and testified against Ghislaine Maxwell, and she ended up being convicted of these serious crimes, and she's now being held in an isolation prison in Brooklyn because we all know what happens to these people when they're behind bars. They tend to get the worst of the worst, very violent. So she's been held in a very isolated jail cell, and she's also being surveilled because, as we all know, Jeffrey Epstein was actually not caught murdering himself. And they actually erased over their surveillance video. And, there's big speculations there if he was even, murdered himself or if he was murdered as well. So there's also some speculation that he may have been a spy. And I actually read this in my comments below. So please let me know any sort of speculation you have, because I love actually reading your speculation and following up on it. So there is some rumors out there that Jeffrey Epstein was a spy and Ghislaine Maxwell could be a spy as well, because her father, Robert Maxwell, was apparently a spy. I didn't know all this until like yesterday, so I've been doing my research really well. So my point is with that, I really hope Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't have the same fate as Jeffrey Epstein, because I want to see her rot behind bars, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. And I also believe that Ghislaine Maxwell should be on the hook for being in custody, because that's a huge taxpayer dime. And I really feel like Jeffrey Epstein's estate should go to all the victims, even though he probably has like offshore accounts where a lot of his money is, because I looked up his net worth and it was only like 150 million. I'm sure he's worth way more than that because he has been blackmailing people his entire life, in my opinion. I think Wexner handed over all of his estate to be controlled by Jeffrey Epstein. I believe Wexner was being blackmailed as well. So Jeffrey Epstein's net worth is probably worth a lot more than what Google is reporting. And I believe the estate should really go to the victims. And this is what is the connection with Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, is because Ghislaine Maxwell actually met Prince Andrew at Oxford University way back when, and they have been friends since. And it's kind of, I'm unsure of when Jeffrey Epstein actually was introduced to Prince Andrew, but after Jeffrey Epstein was released from jail, we do know that Prince Andrew flew to New York City and went in the Central Park and had a meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was actually photographed in this picture, and everybody, it was a huge scandal. It's like, why are you meeting with Jeffrey Epstein? And he says, hey, I actually was meeting with him to tell him we can't be friends anymore. I don't know if you guys believe that, but that was the major scandal. Prince Andrew had huge scandals over the years. He was called Air Miles Andy. He was called Handy Andy right now. And he's also called Randy Andy. And there's this one picture of him sweating from way back when, and his pupils are like dilated like crazy. And a lot of people think that he may have been, anyway, I don't want to get sued. Basically, I don't want to get sued. So yeah, he's had major scandals over the years, and I enjoy reading all about how you guys feel about Prince Andrew as well, because I like to follow up on these scandals. And he's also is a divorcee, and Fergie as well is probably living a good life right now because she's like escaped all this drama. And also Meghan Markle is probably sipping tea right now, just watching this all unfold, and is like, I told you so. I'm not too sure if you guys like Meghan Markle or not on my channel, but there is some conspiracy about Meghan Markle as well, and that the royal family is just basically creating all this drama about Meghan Markle to avoid their own drama, their own scandals, including Prince William having an affair. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Prince William allegedly is having an affair with Kate's best friend, Rose Hanbury. And I'll discuss this at the end because it's not actually true. It's just rumors right now. It's not confirmed. But I'm going to get into the big scandal of the moment. The big L in court was that Prince Andrew was probably going to be found guilty. I'm going to bank that he is going to be found guilty because the testimonies of the 4 women in the Ghislaine Maxwell case was the main factor in convicting Ghislaine Maxwell. So when the Virginia Giuffre case happens, Virginia Giuffre is going to bring about 6 key testimonies. So 6. And this is a civil case. So the bar for a civil case to be convicted in a civil case is actually going to be lower than the criminal case. So this trial is pretty much in the bag. Like, Prince Andrew is going to be found guilty. I'm like, my money's on that because Virginia Giuffre is going to give an impact statement at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And, please make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, because I'm going to be reporting that. So this impact statement is going to happen. She may actually name Prince Andrew because we do know from her Twitter that she says there's many other parties involved in this case, and she wants them also being brought to justice. There's Bill Clinton, and I'm going to get into Bill Clinton in a bit because I mentioned the other guy, the red guy, too many times, and I'm getting roasted in my comments, and I don't talk about Bill Clinton enough. We'll get to him in a bit, but there's a whole host of other people. Prince Andrew is only just the beginning, so let's get into it. Prince Andrew should be sweating right now because he's most likely going to be found guilty of these crimes for Virginia Giuffre because the evidence is just stacking up against him. The testimonies are going to be stacked up against him, and he is running scared. So first of all, he did was just ridiculous. He acted like it didn't exist and that he never was served the papers. And then eventually he was served properly, quote unquote. The second excuse he made was she lives in Australia, so therefore she doesn't have jurisdiction in where I am, which is the UK, doesn't have jurisdiction. He said that to the judge. The judge threw that out and said, no, you are going to have a hearing about this. So the hearing is tomorrow. Again, please make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be talking about the hearing tomorrow. Prince Andrew says that he reached a 2009 settlement with Jeffrey Epstein, a 2009 settlement that protects him from this court case against Virginia Giuffre. So that's going to come to light Monday as well. We're going to find out the aspects of this settlement that allegedly protects him from any sort of lawsuit against Virginia Giuffre. I don't think that's going to work. It's going to be made public tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be talking about that as well. And Prince Andrew from the start, obviously said like he couldn't sweat. And Virginia Giuffre's court filing said, prove to me you can't sweat. He goes back, Prince Andrew says, I have no medical evidence that I can't sweat. And this is very bizarre because not being able to sweat is a huge problem, and you most likely will have to go to the doctors and have a bunch of medical evidence to prove that you can't sweat. He can't produce one shred of evidence, and there's a whole host of photos of him sweating. So his excuse that he doesn't sweat doesn't work. There's also he says he never met Virginia Giuffre. There's a picture of him meeting Virginia Giuffre. There's also another witness that testified to the FBI that she saw Prince Andrew with Virginia Giuffre at a club. So there's also eyewitness accounts. And then there's also an email that came out that Prince Andrew emailed Ghislaine Maxwell to ask about Virginia Giuffre. So this idea that Prince Andrew never even met Virginia Giuffre is off the charts lie. And, it's just coming to light. He is going to have to face his day in court. He can't prove he can't sweat, as well as he has this excuse, and you're not allowed to talk about this on a certain subreddit called the Epstein subreddit, which is where I get a lot of my information. Full disclosure. I also link all my sources in the description below, but I get some of my information from here. And you're not allowed to mention Pizzagate because this is really weird. QAnon conspiracy Let me know how you guys feel about this, if I'm just being crazy, but the QAnon conspiracy has this conspiracy about Pizzagate. And what's weird about Prince Andrew was that he actually has this alibi that he was at a pizza place in Woking, UK, and it's a famous pizza place in Woking. And he says that that's his alibi, but he can't corroborate that at all. Even Beatrice, his daughter, went on record saying that I can't prove that he was there either. So it's so weird that like he can't prove his alibi about him being at this pizza place in Woking. It's called Pizza Express, I believe. And he has no proof of that. And he can't prove his alibi. He can't prove he can't sweat. So this guy is going to court. He's going to be having testimony up against 6 women, and he's going to be found guilty. And I asked you guys, if he is found guilty, should he be stripped of his title? And 94% of you said yes. So let's get into what the insiders at the Royal Palace has to say, because this is very interesting as well. So royal courtiers are discussing plans to strip Prince Andrew of his Duke of York title if he loses the lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre, according to the Sunday Times. Sunday Times has a paywall, so I couldn't really look at this article. But basically, insiders are saying that if he is found guilty of the Virginia Giuffre case, he will lose his titles. And something else that's kind of interesting about this is that he will also be removed from his military titles as well. And more on that in a bit, but what I found after the 2009 BBC interview was that he actually was forced to step down from his royal duties after this disastrous BBC interview where he said the famous line where he can't sweat. And after this BBC interview, he stepped down for royal duties. So I thought for sure he was going to lose his titles, his Duke of York titles then, but he still has them, which is so bizarre. So, and I noticed a lot of the news articles right now refer to him as the Duke of York. So I have a problem with that, obviously, because if he's convicted, he should be referred to as like a convicted criminal. I think this Duke of York is a disgrace to the royal family. I think Prince Andrew, what he did, even to the Queen, inviting 2 convicted predators, essentially, to the Queen's lodge, is out of control. I mean, you see a side-by-side photo of the Queen at her lodge with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in the same bench as the Queen. This guy has brought so much shame to the royal family. And what is so weird about this too is that in some ways, the Queen is protecting Prince Andrew, because I just found this out, and I'm sorry if you guys know this. I'm learning more and more about this case as we go along, because you guys are being awesome in the comments, and I really appreciate that. Prince Andrew was apparently the Queen's favorite son. I didn't know that. And so she is willing to protect him tooth and nail until the very bitter end. So, I mean, right now, the royal courtiers are all saying, hey, we need to remove his Duke of York title. And I 100% agree. You guys all agree. It also says, other ideas allegedly being considered by the royal household include sending the Duke into some form of internal exile and asking him to relinquish any links he has to charities. So a source has said, if Prince Andrew loses the case, the question is, what do you do with him? You can't make him resign like you would a normal person, but he would be asked to put his dukedom in abeyance. So it's very interesting because, as I said, the Queen is standing behind her favorite son 100%. And I have that in my cover photo, but it says, royal insiders said it would be difficult to persuade the Queen to remove the title of Duke of York, as it was held by her father before he became king, and she bestowed it on her favorite son. But he has disgraced that title. Very interesting. And so I think he should be using his title. I think the disgrace that he brought to the family is absolutely terrible, and he most likely will lose the title. So he also will be losing his military. So this is interesting as well. Top army chiefs want toxic Prince Andrew to quit his 9 military roles. And I have this in my cover photo right here, and I'm kind of pointing towards it. But a lot of people are basically saying this is a fake suit. And I'm not too sure. If you guys can let me know if this guy has ever fought in a war before, but apparently he has 9 military titles. And it says here, Prince Andrew is under pressure to give up his 9 military roles, according to defense sources. Top brass are hoping he will resign so the Queen is not forced to take away his honorary titles. And so this is kind of interesting as well. Is look at my dog right here. We support the Queen. We do. And I think the Queen deserves better. Randy Andy needs to be stopped in all ways. He needs to be his titles removed. And this is what I'm not understanding really, is how I guess the Queen would have to be the one to remove his titles for him. So she's the only one with that power. So I don't know if she'll ever do that. And I read some speculation that the Queen, once she passes away, which will be a terrible day, you know, next in succession will be Prince Charles, I believe. So Prince Charles, you know, hopefully he doesn't take it. And then Prince William, maybe, I don't know what's going to happen there, but I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. But I do think that Prince Andrew should be his titles removed. He's ninth in line for the throne, thank goodness, because if he was king, that would be the worst. That's the only one good thing coming out of it. So yeah, the military wants him to remove his 9 titles, and they refer to him as toxic. So it is interesting. And on the capacity of him being toxic, it says here, he is known to basically try to keep everybody quiet, and he's known to be ruling with an iron fist. And right here it says, royal insiders claimed they were too scared to go up against Prince Andrew. So they call it palace paralysis over Duke's case. Royal staff sleepwalked into Prince Andrew's crisis and were too scared to stand up to him because he operated with impunity within the royal family, says insiders, as he suffers 2 setbacks. So he is basically not letting anybody question him, not let anybody, you know, call him out. And what I found kind of weird about Prince Andrew is that he still has the maple syrup or the gravy train available to him. I'm Canadian, so I use maple syrup, but he has like a lot of money still at his disposal. And this is him. Prince Andrew has been driving a brand new 80,000 pound Range Rover around Windsor estate amid the multi-million legal battle with the accuser, Virginia Roberts, who I call Virginia Giuffre, which is her married name. This guy still has the ability to be on the Windsor Castle, living this life of luxury and privilege, driving around in a new 80,000 pound Range Rover, which is paid by you guys, the taxpayers of the UK. And I also was reading an article about how he needs his security stepped up as well because of these allegations. In fact, the whole royal family does, because of Meghan Markle calling the royal family discriminatory. So basically, the security at the royal family needs to be stepped up highly because of this. And again, going back to Air Miles Andy, he is somebody that is known to spend a lot of money, and this is obviously not his money. So I'm not too sure how the United Kingdom feels about that, but I see there's an overwhelmingly majority saying that he needs to be removed. And I would have to agree. I think this is problematic that, you know, he's able to still afford his lifestyle after backing away from royal duties. Like, I just, as a Canadian, I find it hard to understand, like, how is he still able to afford, you know, an 80,000 pound, which is around $100,000 American Range Rover is crazy to me. And he needs to step up his security. And, you know, I don't know how everybody feels about that, but let me know how you guys feel about that. I think that's preposterous. So if I'm going back to, I see there's 2,000 people here. Thank you so much for being here. I talk a lot about censorship on my channel. I'm getting nervous now. There's so many people watching me. Media censorship. So this is really weird. I talked a little bit about the BBC and how I feel about the BBC, and this is on my last video, and I try my best to keep my content as fresh as possible. So the BBC, after the Ghislaine Maxwell trial verdict came, they actually did this bizarre thing where they started interviewing Ian Maxwell, who is Ghislaine Maxwell's brother, obviously. And they were basically using him as like the prime time news source to defend Ghislaine Maxwell. And I get a lot of trouble because I pronounce her name wrong. It's Ghislaine because it's French. And I'm starting to say it with a little bit of an accent to please everybody. Ghislaine Maxwell. So the Ghislaine Maxwell had a verdict, and she was obviously found guilty and is now facing 65 years in prison because of these absolutely heinous crimes that she has committed. Like, it reminds me of Law and Order SVU crimes, like the worst of the worst kind of crimes. And her brother was brought on the BBC during primetime hours to defend her. And this comes after the BBC said, I'm sorry about interviewing this lawyer. A lawyer they brought on to the BBC. They brought on a lawyer who was actually convicted himself. He is actually convicted by Virginia Giuffre for the same crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell did. And he is convicted. He's under investigation from Virginia Giuffre for those crimes as well. And the BBC brought that lawyer on as like this middle of the road lawyer that can provide some analysis on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And he was brought on and he basically said, this is awful. She's lying. Ghislaine Maxwell's not guilty. Virginia Giuffre is also accusing me of these same crimes. And this guy was supposed to be a legal expert, just like somebody that was unbiased. And the BBC brought him on. I mean, when I talk about media censorship, this is what I mean. It's like the BBC is clearly defending Prince Andrew. And if I was in the UK, I think I would be very upset over that. I mean, we have the CBC here, and we actually get the same kind of thing with the CBC, all this scandal. And it just shows like the BBC is very biased towards defending Ghislaine Maxwell, because they know if Ghislaine Maxwell is found guilty, therefore Prince Andrew is going to be found guilty as well. And the odds are just stacked up against him. And we're talking about how Prince Andrew will be removed potentially, as they say from royal insiders, that all his titles will be removed. And the military also wants his titles removed as well if he's found guilty of the Virginia Giuffre civil lawsuit. And as I said before, the bar is set a lot lower in civil lawsuits. The testimonies of women will have more impact in this lawsuit. So therefore, he's most likely going to be found guilty. He's bringing such a disgrace to the royal family, and I think he should be removed. I also think, on that topic, there's pictures of him with Kevin Spacey as well. Kevin Spacey was brought into the Buckingham Palace because of Prince Andrew's connections. Obviously, Ghislaine and Epstein were brought into royal areas because of Prince Andrew. I mean, Prince Andrew also brought in 3 convicted predators to his daughter's 18th birthday on Windsor Castle. His daughter turned 18. Who does he invite to go to the Windsor Castle? He invites none other than obviously Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, but also Harvey Weinstein. And that is so mind-blowing to me that these 3 people were brought onto royal property, have their pictures taken on royal property, all because of Prince Andrew. Kevin Spacey, also convicted of the same things, brought onto royal property. This Prince Andrew has brought in so much shame to the royal family, and I think he needs to be removed immediately. And the Queen needs to step up and start being a parent to her child and showing him consequences of his actions. And I think this needs to be a strong message. And there are some talks about him basically losing his privileges. And I'm talking about media censorship here because I just talked about the BBC and dragged them through the mud. And now I'm going to talk about how he himself is wanting to censor the trial, because Prince Andrew wants unprecedented right to keep evidence sealed. And this is ridiculous, because the thing about the royal family that I cannot wrap my head around is they are a public family. They're propped up by the taxpayer of the UK. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But they're a public facing company almost. They're a public brand almost. they're a newsworthy event. Like in America, we have freedom of speech laws. We're allowed to know certain things, especially when it comes to public officials. You're allowed to question public officials. You're allowed free speech. This to me is so crazy that Prince Andrew is actually trying to prevent the British people to talk and know what he has done behind bars on the taxpayers' dime. And, this has been brought up in the past with Air Miles Andy, Randy Andy, and now we have Handy Andy. I think the British people deserve to know what he has done. Prince Andrew's legal team has launched an unprecedented bid for secrecy surrounding evidence in his Jeffrey Epstein-related lawsuit, an attorney for his accuser says. Virginia Giuffre says she was forced to partake in activities with the Duke of York in London, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands when she was 17 years old, a trafficking victim. However, Queen Elizabeth's son is trying to get the case thrown out, and the two parties are currently locked in an argument over how and when to disclose evidence. So basically, he is trying to let people know that you cannot know what this court is about. And it's a civil lawsuit. And unfortunately, in that regard, the public will know. And this is absolutely ridiculous that he is trying to be this arrogant, pompous person who says, I'm just going to ignore it. You guys don't deserve to know. And he treats it as like petty. But really, I think the public deserves to know. And this is absolutely mind-blowing to me that he would actually make this request, that he thinks his power is that great, that he can basically gaslight the entire British public into not knowing what he has done is astounding. And it's, as I say, it's unprecedented. Like, this is not appropriate. And on my channel, I talk a lot about media censorship. And this is one of those examples. And, Virginia Giuffre just basically threw him under the bus and said, he's trying to seal this evidence. But the reality is the public deserves to know he's not going to get this evidence sealed. This is public discourse, and it's not going anywhere. But I don't know what you guys think. This is another example of censorship in this case. I didn't cover this on my channel, but there was something called the Ghislaine Maxwell tracker trial. And basically it's this tracker trial because, as you know, Ghislaine Maxwell's case was a criminal case and no cameras were allowed because it was a federal case. So we only had the ability to look at sketches and all those things. We actually couldn't have cameras inside that case at all. So we were left to only have the ability to have journalists inside the courtroom, sketches being drawn, and also people tweeting about the case. And this is crazy because, as a YouTuber, I think it's important to show the alternate side of things and show that there's more to the story than you're getting through the media. Again, bringing up the BBC, they're trying to spin this narrative that Ghislaine Maxwell is a victim, but that's not the case. And this is another example. This was the trial tracker. It was a Twitter account that was basically removed from Twitter because it was sharing evidence that the public didn't want them to know about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And in this trial, many huge names were mentioned. We had Bill Clinton being mentioned. We had Donald Trump being mentioned. We had, obviously, Prince Andrew being mentioned. All these huge names being mentioned, and they're trying to keep it secret. They're trying to hide this under wrap. Prince Andrew is doing the exact same thing. He's telling people that they cannot know about this trial. And there is a lot of conspiracies about this. And I'm just going to play a clip from Joe Rogan and Blair White that basically talks about this. And I'm going to reread in your chats.
Just banned the Ghislaine. How do you say it?
I know. Ghislaine Maxwell, the trial tracker.
You say Ghislaine? Is that how you say it?
I think it's Ghislaine, yeah.
Do you know how to say it, Jamie? Ghislaine? You think so?
I've never heard her say it, but I think that's how you say it.
I like to say Ghislaine because it's funny.
That's better. Let's go with that.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine.
The tracker
got yeeted.
Yeah, but it got yeeted for what? Did you see what it got yeeted for? The last post? It was.
No.
They showed that a bunch of evidence that was introduced already had FBI tags on it, which means the FBI had access to all of these CDs, all of these hard drives, all of these things, had reviewed them, and then had allowed them to be brought back in for evidence, supposedly. See if you can find it.
See,
because it's posted up. A lot of people have reposted it. under
Doesn't
threat
this
of
like
banning.
Streisand affect it? Because there's people who are just gonna ad nauseum just
Well,
fucking trial
you're
track it, right?
smarter than the feds. Congratulations.
In a way, but also that account had a huge following very quickly. I think it had like
Yeah.
400K followers very quickly.
530,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they just banned it.
And that's what's like, okay, so there's all this media attention for the Rittenhouse thing. You can't turn on the TV without seeing it, which it was a big deal. And it you know, I think a lot of American issues were kind of going head to head over that trial. But like the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, I feel like is so much more to the public interest, or it should be,
Yeah.
because it's like you have Hollywood and the elites and people connected to politics preying on young girls, and the fact that that's not of a higher priority in people's attention span is really sad, I think.
Just banned the Ghislaine. How do you say it?
I know.
Ghislaine
Ghislaine Maxwell, the trial
You say
tracker.
Ghislaine? Is that how you say it?
I think it's Ghislaine, yeah.
Do you know how to say it, Jamie? Ghislaine?
Wow. So that is absolutely crazy that this is being banned. And we're talking about media censorship. And just hearing this straight from the horse's mouth that other people think the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is being hidden from the public is absolutely crazy. Then we have Prince Andrew basically saying the same thing, where he wants everything to be hidden as well. So
Just banned the
thank you so much for the super chat, Janet Odell. I really appreciate that. Oh my goodness, Janet Odell. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Wow. I'm not expecting that. Thank you so much. That's amazing. So yeah, I think I just want to talk a little bit about how the trial is being censored and the Twitter suspends the account. Then we have, I just want to switch a little bit up because Sarah Ferguson is living her best life and she's probably, you know, very happy she's dodging this bullet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how Meghan Markle was kind of used as a scapegoat to basically hide all these scandals from the public. And so right here we have Sarah Ferguson, who is still the Duchess of York, by the way, even though Prince Andrew separated or divorced from the Duchess of York, she is still the Duchess of York. So she'll keep her title, but then Prince Andrew will most likely lose his after this. And so Prince Andrew's family put on a united front as they were spotted for the first time since the conviction of the Duke of York's close friend, Ghislaine Maxwell. The Duchess of York linked arms with her daughter, Beatrice and Eugenie, and their husbands as well, as they took a stroll in the exclusive Swiss ski resort of Verbier. The five appeared to be in good spirits despite the growing scandals surrounding the Duke of York's association with Virginia Giuffre. So, you know, I really feel I'm rooting for Sarah Ferguson. I'm rooting for Virginia Giuffre. I think, you know, this sort of image of all these people linking arms, standing together says a lot about this case and how, you know, even just like with the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, you had 4 separate women all taking testimony and being brave. And I think that really says a lot about what people can do together. And I think this is such a great symbolic moment of that. And seeing that sort of solidarity happen. I mean, she must be pretty happy that she's no longer with Prince Andrew after all this. This is them old school hanging out at the ski lodge when they're a big happy family, which is great. This is again Prince Andrew driving around his $100,000 American, $80,000 pound Range Rover, which is still obviously from the Queen. And, you know, I think he needs to be cut off. Obviously, Virginia Giuffre bringing this court case up against Prince Andrew. And Virginia Giuffre is going to be making an impact statement as well on Monday. And she's probably going to name Prince Andrew in this. And that actually would be helpful towards her case. And I just also want to say that Prince Andrew, in his laundry list of defenses he has made so far, one of them was that this lady, Virginia Giuffre, was actually a recruiter for Epstein as well. So Virginia Giuffre used to actually go and recruit other women for Epstein to abuse. So it's possible because Ian Maxwell uses it as a defense, but Prince Andrew will most likely use that as a defense as well for his case. And I don't think that's a defense at all. By the way, my computer was like overheating and I had to like open up a window in case you saw me like running around. And my dog is now like sneezing, but she's really cute. So God save the Queen. I really feel for the Queen. Her son has really done her dirty, as they say. So in the case, and I think this is the reason why the case will, not go well for Prince Andrew, is because there's actually so much evidence against him. One of the evidence that I found was, obviously there's the photo together, which is infamous. He says that this is a deep fake photo. He says that somebody actually photoshopped his face on someone else. I'm not buying that. Then this is one I didn't know, but a handyman can testify that he saw Prince Andrew kiss Virginia Giuffre he was at Epstein's former handyman has claimed he saw him assault Miss Giuffre, Steve Scully. And then we have the ex-personal assistant saw Virginia Giuffre groped. And I talk about this on my case on my channel a lot. And I'm sorry if this is a mental image for you, but apparently Prince Andrew had a puppet that he would use, and he would use this puppet to abuse Virginia Giuffre with. And the ex-personal assistant was the one who saw this. And so that is going to be used potentially against him. Yeah, and then as I mentioned earlier, the witness saw them at the club, and then Beatrice, his daughter, can't remember him at Pizza Express, so his alibi can't check out either. And this is a new story as well. The ex-boyfriend of Virginia Giuffre went on record and said that Prince Andrew did abuse her. And this is the ex-boyfriend here. This is the picture of them together. And he basically went on record and came out and basically supported his ex-girlfriend. It writes here, the ex-girlfriend of the woman accusing Prince Andrew of abuse today claims she was scared of what monsters Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein told her to do with him. So this sort of abuse is absolutely heinous and disgusting. And hearing this testimony has really, really brought to light like how bad this abuse was, because I hear all these stories about Ghislaine Maxwell being a terrible human being in general, like in terms of her personality and the way she operated, and just like she was just a rotten kind of person, and she was totally mean to a lot of people. And then we also have this testimony by Virginia Giuffre's ex-boyfriend, who just came out, just hit the tabloids yesterday. This all news came out, and he's basically saying that Virginia Giuffre during this time was scared and she was being trafficked. And this is where I kind of get tripped up, is because this is a civil lawsuit. She is suing for battery and emotional distress, but I'm confused why Prince Andrew isn't being pursued criminally. And I would like to see Prince Andrew being pursued criminally. There's talks about the MET, the Met Police, basically being pressured into interviewing him. And I think actually they went on record saying that they did interview him 3 times, but they're not really doing anything about this. And I would like to see this pursued as a criminal case, because I think being trafficked is obviously very illegal, and being held against your will and treated like a slave to basically have all these altercations with powerful men and being scared to do so and not wanting to do that should be a crime and should be pursued as a crime. I think Prince Andrew not only should be removed of his titles, but needs to be put behind bars if he is actively doing this sort of stuff to people and supporting this sort of industry. When you talk about buying illegal things like guns, for example, if you buy an illegal gun, that's a crime. You're buying an illegal person, and that should be a crime, because you are supporting this huge industry that supports other crimes. So I think this guy, as much as he gets in a civil suit, I think more suits should be pressed against him if he's found guilty in a civil suit, and should be pursued criminally. So the ex-lover of the woman accusing Prince Andrew of abuse claims she was scared of what monsters Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein told her to do with him. So she was treated as a slave, and obviously Prince Andrew denies it. Prince Andrew denies ever meeting Virginia Giuffre, but this has been proven wrong many times with emails, with pictures of him sweating, with pictures of him with her. He met Virginia Giuffre. The ex-boyfriend of the woman accusing Andrew is backing her fight and says the prince should go to America to face questions. So this is basically people are rallying around Virginia Giuffre. Virginia Giuffre is going to present 6 different testimonies at her trial. And as you know, I think Prince Andrew is going to be found guilty. So I remember the first time Virginia mentioned him in 2001, she knew she'd be meeting him and said she knew what they wanted her to do with him and said she didn't want to do it. She said she was scared and nervous. I told her she had to do whatever it took to feel safe. So very, very scary, 17 years old and feeling scared. And I mean, these are rich and powerful men. My dog keeps sneezing. And I can understand why she would feel scared. I mean, Virginia Giuffre, even when she went on record accusing Ghislaine Maxwell of these crimes, Ghislaine Maxwell actually threatened her. And I'm sure you guys all saw like the documentaries about this, where Virginia Giuffre basically said like she threatened me, she threatened everything about me. And you know, this is a long time coming. This entire trial has been boiling for years. And it's so awesome to see it finally come out. And Virginia Giuffre basically being authentic and pursuing this relentlessly. It's awesome to see. So he claims the fallout from her meeting ultimately destroyed the relationship. So obviously this is him on the left. This is Prince Andrew with Jeffrey Epstein after Jeffrey Epstein was in jail after getting a sweetheart deal in 2008 with Alex Acosta. Alex Acosta was the person who basically cut him the 2008 sweetheart deal, where basically Jeffrey Epstein only had to serve 14 months in prison. Then Jeffrey Epstein was let out of prison, and then Jeffrey Epstein met with Prince Andrew in Central Park, and this was a huge scandal. So what was Prince Andrew doing in Central Park with a convicted criminal? One can only speculate on my channel, and I'm not above speculation, but I think this sort of behavior has continued for years and years and years from Prince Andrew. And I think, you know, the cold hard justice needs to be served when it comes to Prince Andrew. So I'm going to switch gears and start talking about another person who I get a lot of comments about I should be talking about him, but Bill Clinton, right? We basically have, I mentioned Donald Trump, and I think a lot of people get me in trouble because I just mentioned Donald Trump with Alex Acosta. I just want to point out, like, Donald Trump banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for flirting with one of his people, one of his staff. And then Donald Trump also didn't know, like, when they were friends, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of anything. So that's out of the question. I don't think he has anything to do with this. Bill Clinton, on the other hand, is a totally different story. This is Bill Clinton on the right here in the Lolita Express. He's flown in it. So it says, legal experts believe Bill Clinton should face investigation over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in the wake of her prosecution. So this is only the tip of the iceberg, and it's potentially possible that Bill Clinton will be pursued as well. And, you know, I think more men will be brought to justice, hopefully, after Prince Andrew is, and this will just continue getting momentum and more names will come out. And it's also been said that Ghislaine Maxwell will not reveal the contents of her little black book. And it has been also said that the FBI is possessing the contents of the black book as well. So they are hush hush about the contents of it. So I think it's going to fall on a lot of the accusers to bring these men to justice. And one of them is Bill Clinton. And I found a lot of information about how Bill Clinton, it says here, Clinton flew on Epstein's jet upwards of 26 times after he left office. And someone brought up a really good connection, but Monica Lewinsky for the longest time wasn't believed. And she was actually made out to be somebody like Virginia Giuffre, who was just after money or wanted fame and success. But I think this adds a lot of credibility to Monica Lewinsky as well, where Bill Clinton could very well be a predator. So 26 times after he left office, Epstein visited the Clinton White House at least 17 times between 1993 and 1995, and he is believed to have visited Epstein's infamous island. So it's absolutely crazy. There's also photos of him earlier this year that was surfaced of him getting a massage by Shantae Davies, who was trafficked by Epstein as well during a trip to Africa. So it's really weird. What I don't understand is this idea that they were actually in Africa. Like Kevin Spacey went to Africa, Bill Clinton went to Africa. Like they did all this crazy stuff in Africa, which I find so strange. But Bill Clinton went to Africa to basically get a massage from one of the people that was trafficked by Epstein. And I really want Bill Clinton to be next. I don't know about you guys, who you guys want to be next, but I think Bill Clinton's an easy target right now. So Ghislaine's trial saw Clinton cited as a regular on Epstein's private jet, and he was name dropped alongside other associates such as Donald Trump and Prince Andrew. So yeah, very interesting. So I think there will be a case against Bill Clinton in the near future. I mean, this is a pretty incriminating photo right here of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know what you guys think. I think, one of the big things was you're next. And, I think Bill Clinton's next. So this is something I'm going to discuss, switch gears here a little bit and talk about conspiracies. So one of the big conspiracies right now is the Meghan Markle conspiracy. And I know a lot of people from the UK do not really like Meghan Markle. And, do you? But there's a conspiracy right now that this sort of Markle finger pointing is because the royal family is trying to hide and gaslight. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Netflix movie called Don't Look Up, where it's like officials are trying to hide situations by having you focus on something else. So there's a lot of accusations that the royal family is basically using Meghan Markle as a way to let the public pay attention to her and not the Prince Andrew scandals. And I just found out this scandal is the Prince William having an affair scandal. And I'm just what do you guys think about the Prince William affair? And this is actually something that was squashed by the royal family. And they actually sent a cease and desist letter to In Touch Weekly, because In Touch Weekly had no ties to the royal family. And In Touch Weekly published a story about Prince William's affair. So Prince William allegedly was going after Kate Middleton's best friend, Rose. And there's also speculation that there's a love child. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but these are just rumors right now. So In Touch Weekly had this big story about Prince William having an affair, and the royal family decided to take that down from In Touch Weekly, but it has recently resurfaced because of this comment right here. So I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this because, deputy editor of race-baiting newspaper trying to divert attention from the huge L in court. As I'm saying, this is what Richard Eden had to write. I'm sorry, I don't know who Richard Eden is. Okay, he's a Daily Mail diary editor. Wow. Okay, so he writes, I genuinely worry that Prince Harry and Meghan criticism of unnamed racist royals has increased the danger of attacks on the royal family security needs to be stepped up as a result. So basically he's saying, all these attacks against the royal family requires security, and obviously the public of the UK should be aware of that because they're the ones paying for the security. And this is what kind of rehashed the allegations of the Prince William scandal. Was deputy editor of newspaper trying to divert attention from the huge L in court, which is, Ghislaine Maxwell finding guilty and then Prince William being next. Also, I'd rather the media just named Prince William as the person in question instead of pussyfooting about it like they did his affair with the Rose Lassie. So this lady is called Rose Hanbury. It's apparently Kate Middleton's really close friend. And I don't know if you guys believe this, but this is all pure speculation. But In Touch Weekly published this, and they were basically met with a defamation lawsuit with the High Court. So, P.S. injunctions from the High Court in London are worthless in Scotland. My residence and no amount of legal pressure is going to erase the fact that Prince William had an affair with Rose Hanbury. Enjoy your evening. So here's where it gets a little weird. And I don't know if you guys believe this or not. And I'm sorry I'm like talking about this because I got roasted on Twitter for talking about this, but people are convinced Prince William had a love child with Kate Middleton's friend. And I don't know if I believe this, but this is huge news that people are talking about. And basically, during this time, he had he was taking a lot of helicopters. And I'm just pulling up the tweet right here because I want to be choice with my words. But this is basically Queen Elizabeth is very worried about Prince William, Kate, and the kids flying in helicopters. So this was a big story, but basically people think there's another side to the story. And this person writes, of course, Prince William affair is funded by British taxpayers. Think of the 47 helicopter flights during a mostly lockdown pandemic year where royals only did Zoom calls. Where was Prince William going? And people are thinking that Prince William is going to see his other lover. And people are basically saying that Prince William is having an affair. And all this is a big cover up to hide the scandals of the royal family. So I don't know what you guys think, but sound off if you believe this or not. And something that someone brought up in the original story of this was that a timeline of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles' romance. I just wanted to give this some light because I learned this about Prince Charles was that there was an affair with Princess Diana, and Prince Charles, basically there was allegations that he was having an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. So I don't know, like father, like son. And, you know, this is sort of just like how the royal family is. And there is basically some speculation there as well. And I'm just going to leave it on what this lady had to say about the royal family, because I do think it's very interesting and it plays into my channel a lot.
I mean, it struck me, a couple of things just struck me that, you know, there is a complete identity crisis with the royal family. You know, is it a public institution? Is it a brand? Is it a private family? And we have to work out what it really is. And when it comes to being a public institution, then the transparency and the accountability should be the same as any other. If it's going to be a brand, then let's be clear that we're peddling a myth, an image, a brand, and we don't want to dig under the bonnet of that too much. If they want to be a private family, then you have to step out of you have to step off the stage, because you can't kind of have it all ways. And I sort of come back to this brand idea, which I think, you know, to Tom's point about what is the value of the royal family. If you're going to be a brand ambassador for a £65 billion, you know, brand, then you've got to live, as any brand does, with a sort of authenticity and integrity. And I think one of the things that really frustrates me is the mythologizing of the royal family, the fact that there is a sort of fairy tale peddled, which bears no relation to reality, you know, and that we have this sort of, as I called it in the chat, this sort of institutionalized deference that doesn't allow us to ask the right questions and, more importantly, get the right answers. So when it comes to, you know, the sort of the huge interest in Harry and William, we know that there's a whole side of that story that has not been reported by the British media. We know that there are rumours of alleged infidelity on William's part that the UK press just will not touch. And frankly, you know, if Harry has buggered off to Santa Barbara, having been on the receiving end of such extraordinary press coverage while his brother has not received a single critical article in the UK, and, you know, puts out 10th anniversary wedding videos that look like Bowden and Peter Jones' offspring after a drunken night out, you know, I'm not surprised he's walked, because he's actually lifting the lid on a really skewed system of behaviour in the UK.
Wow. So that really sums it up perfectly. And I was reading some of your chats here. Silent Murmur writes, Prince Charles still upheld the value of love in a relationship, though, rather than developing an objectifying view of the opposite polarity. Very interesting. Thank you for that comment. Amidst the Roses writes, Meghan Markle has for PR firms promoting her and demeaning William and Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. Some people say that's where Rose Hanover's story. Interesting. So I just wanted to throw out that speculation there and see what you guys had to say. If honest, I don't think he had an affair for the fact I don't think he would put his children through what he went through with his father and the pain his mother went through, Victoria Patterson writes, amidst the roses. Beautiful comments. Thank you so much, guys. OQD Family Channel writes, it's no different rumors about Prince Charles was gay and had gay lovers and had female lovers while he is married to Camilla Bowles. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I see people dropping off. I look forward to reading all your comments, and I really appreciate everybody having a lot of speculation. I was going to talk about how the Jeffrey Epstein guy was a spy, because I do have some speculation on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell being spies because of your guys' comments, and because I read your comments, I follow up on this. And I love reading them, and I love reading what you guys have to say, because this is all news to me and I'm learning so much about this case. And I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. Do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the bell so you never miss a live. I love hanging out with you guys. Do not forget to press like, and I look forward to reading all your comments. Thank you so much, guys.